Okay, today is this is part 2, Thursday, October the 20th, 2016, part 2. Okay, Yosef.
Okay, hi everyone, Real Truth family. I'm Yosef. I'm on with Tank. We're waiting for another. Hola. We're waiting for another brother, Robert, to come in. And the plan for tonight's a bit of an impromptu call, so we apologize for not giving anybody fair warning. We are of the belief this is the final night before the global release is officially thrust upon the world. The dam's open, and we feel this is the last evening, or as Don Henley used to say, the last worthless evening that you'll have to spend. Great lyricist, by the way, Don Henley. Not a great singer, but a great lyricist. And we have a lot of information. There was a sit rep that came out on Dinar Chronicles that Tank and I helped contribute to, along with Bruce and Robert, who you'll hear. There's an intel group of about 10 guys that kind of either through us or through third parties, we kind of all accumulate these sit reps and these updates so that we can try and get our arms around where the ball is bouncing. Bruce said tonight on his call that there were as many as 9 failed attempts within the last few days. We think have been as many as one a day, maybe dozens within the month of October, and I'm saying multiple dozens to get this started. So what we have now is some closure from world courts and some imminency in terms of prosecution and liens and global collateral account releases and a variety of different legal and military, police, and also some monetary changes that have gone on within the last 24 hours, less than 24 hours, Tank?
Yeah, it's just amazing stuff, actually.
Mm-hmm. So what Tank and I are going to do is we're just going to start, and we're going to just go over this, and I'll read it off, and Tank, I'll let you just kind of bounce into it if you want to. We'll just bounce back and forth, okay?
Sure, man.
Or how about this? How about we let Dr. WC read it, and then we'll answer to it. How about that?
I think that's wise.
Dr. WC,
is this a sit rep for tonight that came out this evening?
Yeah, it should say released on it.
Okay, yes, I read it. Let me
you got it?
Quick. Yes, hold on. You guys go ahead and talk, and I'll let you know when I've got it open.
All right, so the first note, which is important, we got this from the AIB, from Robert, actually, that the M1 released the global currency reset and revaluation of these global currencies, on Wednesday, which would be yesterday, 10/19/2016 at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That would be 9 p.m. Eastern. That would be a little more like 2 hours in a day from where we are right now. The reason this is significant is because there are very old families in Asia and Europe, specifically in Asia, that possess and control the vast majority of the world's in-ground tangible assets that have been mined over the last, I don't know how many thousands of years humanity has existed on the planet. They've been able to corral it, corner it, house it, vault it, and store it safely on this earth and other dimensions for quite some period of time. And these assets, along with some assets in Europe that were accumulated over similar centuries, are considered the global collateral accounts. They are the hard assets that have been put into individual trusts that serve as one collective trust in order to hydrate the world for this exact moment of which you live. And Tank, I know quite a bit about this, maybe even more so than you, but you've kind of come to it recently on your own. How would you understand the collateral accounts coming at it from somebody that's just been in the currency a couple of years?
Well, basically my understanding is that you have these massive tranches of gold, including things such as Solomon's gold that have been lying in wait to be used as the backing for all the currency in the world to free humanity and allow people to go back to realizing that we live in abundance and not in lack and suffering.
So this same global collateral account was the gold that was put up for the Bretton Woods agreements and the financial system that was to reboot the world after World Wars I and II, which were very bloody and messy wars, specifically in Europe and in Asia. And that started off all fine and well, but it went south very quickly because the Eastern European, we'll call them the dark cabal or dark nobility families, decided that they didn't want good things to happen to humanity. They wanted bad things, and so they, through treachery and deception, found a way to maneuver themselves within government, within politics, within the banking system, obviously, within the media, to get what we got now, which is what you're seeing is a very disjointed political election that makes no sense because it appears one way and yet it's being reported another, and vice versa. Up is down, down is up, and everything's kind of in opposites. And that's because of the unraveling of this dark nobility family out of geopolitics, out of the banking system, out of the collateral account representation. And a whole new system has been built right alongside the old system, and it has now officially been replaced, which is why what's called the M1, we'll call them grandfather or baby grandfather, depending on who you consider it as. It's a line of succession within the elder families that have final monetary authority over all the elders within that division or that code of family, that color of family, that really truly has the final say on releasing humanity from economic bondage. But it's not just economic bondage, Tank, right? Because the global collateral accounts are the hard assets that back all monies, all currencies, all bonds anywhere in the world. Thus, they have a wide-ranging effect over a variety of different theaters, disciplines, and industries, right? Military, entertainment, media.
Absolutely. Hayden and I talk about this a lot because, he really has a great vision for, I think that one of the things we'll be charged to do is to really change the way, communication exists and change the way industries operate and change the way that success is measured based on our ability to do so. So it is financial, but it's kind of changes the focus to be off money and beyond impact. So yeah, I'd say
right.
Definitely more than money.
If you cut the head off from the body of the snake, the head just kind of rolls around and withers, and so does the body. So that's what we're witnessing right now. The head has been cut off from the snake, at least from the financial standpoint. And so you're seeing the military start to become in disarray in Syria, in the Ukraine, in Turkey, even in Israel, even in our own United States. It's very convoluted because nobody knows where to attach their loyalties to anymore because they could have been raised within this dark nobility family, and that family arm is no longer there suddenly. And so they have no roof over their head, and they struggle to find some relevance or some understanding of the situation that, quite frankly, they're not privy to. So they run around flailing, trying to create chaos and disaster and war and threats, and it just goes nowhere because there's no energy behind it. They're not connected into the plug that is making the world go, which is the global collateral accounts. So the old financial system was turned off. The new financial system was turned on. If we were building some sort of construction line in a plant someplace, we would have cut a ribbon and rolled the first car out. That happened at Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Then subsequently after that, the World Court released a ruling. I want to say it's out of Belgium, but I'm not exactly sure where the World Court is these days. There might be a new World Court. The World Court issued a ruling that the GCR RV funds were to immediately be released and gave international clearance to make arrests for anyone attempting to stop the said release. Tank, do you want to speak to that a little bit about what that might mean in terms of this actually happening?
I was told this by someone very much in the know and involved in the process, that they are performing to the letter of the law. And so with things like this, I think it's really important because we're used to the law kind of doing whatever the hell it wants, or at least seemingly so. And I would say that in this process, that you have a new international law that is, in a sense, demanding that authority by following the law, because laws are only impactful when they're followed, right? So if the international court is dictating the release, that's something that for maybe the first time in our lives we can really respect is actually going to happen.
Right, and whatever was good, bad, or different about the World Court, it has since been reformed too, just like the Bank of International Settlements, just like the IMF, just like the Federal Reserve, just like the United States government. A lot of these international institutions had to be reformed before some of these massive changes could not only be introduced but be sustained. And the World Court, I know, to be one of them. Then, after the World Court made the release that there had to be performance on the part of every nation, they also issued an injunction that globally elections were to be halted so that NESARA could be brought forward. Now, a lot of people don't know what NESARA is, the National Economic Stabilization and Revitalization Act. National Economic Stabilization.
Security? It's stabilization or security?
No, National Economic Security and Revitalization Act, NESARA. And JSARA would be the Global Economic Security and Revitalization Act, or Reconstruction Act. So, excuse my acronyms.
It's restoration.
Restoration.
Restoration, right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get that straight. For America, for the United States, it's the National Economic Stabilization.
Security.
No. National
and
Economic
Recovery.
Security and Restoration Act.
Recovery.
National Economic Security and Restoration Act.
Oh, restoration.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Didn't they try and throw another acronym that was close but not quite it to throw us off the trail way back when? I remember that. I think that's where I got cut off. And JSARA, GESARA, all capitals, is an acronym for Global Economic Security and Restoration Act. So National Economic Security and Restoration Act, Global Economic Security and Restoration Act, JSARA and NESARA, respectively. World Court issued an injunction that elections had to be stopped in order to be in accordance in proper alignment with JSARA and NESARA, which would basically throw out the United States election. So the announcement tank that we were looking for from Obama actually came from the World Court.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
We were looking this evening for an announcement to basically recuse and suspend the elections that I'm sure nobody was very disappointed about here in the United States, because ultimately what you had is not only a transfer of money in the world and power shifting from one economic body to the next permanently, but you also had a transition of governments also being forced to switch over. And it wasn't just the United States, it was many governments that now had to act in accordance with the treaties, not only of JSARA and in this country NESARA, but also of the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change, which dealt with both environmental issues and economics, specifically the gold standard. So it was a very historic ruling. However, I'm getting a National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Okay, thank you, Pua. All right, so we have...
It's not Reformation because...
It's not.
Because the cabal tried to put that false one out there for Reformation, and
right.
it is not Reformation, it's restoration, because they're restoring us back to our formal wealth that we were supposed to have. Reformation is where they tried to reform what they were doing. So it is not Reformation. It's restoration.
Okay. National Economic Security and Restoration Act.
correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into that poo at another time. Let's move on. Okay, we got a lot to cover. So we have basically an international legal body that we know has some additional help, higher mind kind of help, governing the process step by step. And Tank, what we were getting tonight and all day was little things were popping out all day long, and then we got this in the afternoon, and we're thinking, wow, Obama's going to make the announcement because we know he has to resign, and because there cannot be two presidents of one country. And Obama's presidency is illegitimate based on the new laws. No different than an old software system no longer functions on the same phone when you switch over. You can't use both. You have to use one or the other. So we've switched political and economic software over to new systems, and we've made different choices. And we got that one after the other today. So it was our understanding that there was going to be an announcement about the elections being transferred or switched or suspended in this case, in our case. And we still may get that in a different form. It's my understanding, Tank, that the House of Representatives can vote actually to suspend the election.
That is my understanding of it as well. And there's a couple different ways that it could play out. But, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to execute. I was going to ask you about it because essentially, it's like it's a brand new government in place, and I know they want to make this a very peaceful transition of power, right? So I just wonder how they're going to do it without introducing too much shock to the public. So I'll be really interested to see how that plays out. And I don't know exactly.
How do you rip off the Band-Aid and not cause any blood? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because basically we're getting the Band-Aid ripped off right now as we're sitting here talking. I think the way to do that is hot water, right? You just pour hot water as you're taking it off, take some of the sting away. So what we're getting is we're getting a piecemeal kind of NESARA enactment. One by one, little by little, we're starting to see it unfold. They're not calling it NESARA. They're not calling the 2015 Paris Agreement on Climate Change the gold standard. But what they're doing is they're slowly, piece by piece, building it like Legos, one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, until at the end of it, you've got this mountain of magnificence, and you have change. And nobody really notices because it didn't come too hard too fast. So one of the things that we saw today, for instance, the WikiLeaks we know is somehow part of this, right? It's soft disclosure of a variety of things. The USA Inc. Dark Cabal, the presence of alien technology and alien assistance and species on our planet through Podesta's emails. It is the announcement of the Clinton Foundation theft and debauchery. It is a variety of different Hillary situations, obviously. Take your pick, Benghazi and State Department emails and lesbian love affairs, or just the list goes on and on and on, right? But one thing that it did today, which I thought was interesting, Tank, is they introduced Obama into the mix of knowing that he was delivering emails to Hillary on a private server, and knowing that a lot of the classified information that he was sending back and forth was not authorized to go on that email server and that private mobile device, including giving his home address and things like that. So that's actually a violation of a variety of statutes governing executive branch leadership. But what they're doing is they're slowly leaking the reality that they're going to bring Obama down and then put in place the next in line of succession per the Constitution, which, if the Obama administration steps down, would be Paul Ryan. Right? So if Obama and Biden give their resignations, the third in line to the presidency is the Speaker of the House. Now, Tank, do you want to explain to these kind people what happened in Reno on Tuesday?
Which thing are we talking about? We're talking about the actual introduction of the Republic and the announcement of the Paul Ryan to the armed forces. Is that what you mean? As the president?
Well, all of it. What happened in Reno at the hangar in Reno, and why in Reno? I know you know the answer because we've talked about these things.
I'll say this: Reno is sovereign land, right? It belongs to the Native Americans. So
there's about 5 tribes that all kind of lay claim to the whole state of Nevada, actually, that centers and focal points around Reno.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Go ahead.
So the Republic essentially came to power fully and officially, and that is something that has since been announced to the rank and file of the military that Paul Ryan is officially the interim president of the Republic of the United States. And in addition, basically the elections are going to be canceled or null and void on some level. I'm not sure how that's going to manifest, but neither Hillary or Trump will be president. And I'm not sure of the time frame, Yosef. Did we get that nailed down of how long, or will there be a new election in January, or will it be further off?
Well, we think it could be as late as January 3rd, but what we're thinking is that it'll be an abbreviated 3-month election with the trying to keep the January 20th inauguration transfer of power peaceful. That's what we think. But we're not exactly sure. It could be suspended indefinitely, in which case the Speaker of the House would remain President of the United States indefinitely until elections were carried out and reinstituted. The problem there is then how do you get a new Democratic candidate that is known? How do you make it fair? How do you introduce the third party and fourth party candidates and fifth party candidates so it's fair? How do you not let this money that's coming into the system through the currency redemptions influence the elections unjustly, unfairly, right? So it's weird. It's I don't exactly understand. I have a lot of theories on it, but nothing that I would put my reputation on. I do know that Paul Ryan was sworn in as president. I do know that Paul Ryan has actually been acting in conjunction with Dunford ever since he was sworn in September of 2000, or actually it was October of 2015, when the Pope, part of the Pope's amnesty agreement was to release the United States and all of its corporations, as well as the Vatican assets and Vatican Bank, back to the world. And what happened then was Boehner was suddenly asked to step down, and he did. And Obama and Biden actually resigned at that time as well and have been keeping up front since then. So Obama and Biden's resignation already exists, okay? They actually already have their taped speeches in place that they can run at any time through emergency broadcast, just so you know. So we're not making this up. We're telling you what's coming and just trying to get your mind around it so you can help others, ease through the fear of it all. I don't want to say it's a coup d'etat because the country was overrun in the first place in a coup d'etat, and a silent, slow, steady coup d'etat. So this is really just the restoration of the republic as it was intended per the Constitution. And that is basically what we're witnessing. And what's interesting is, you have, we've chosen the can we stop that noise, whoever's making it? Tank, is that you, buddy? Who is that?
I get it.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Whoever is, deciding that we are moving to a new government or a new currency or a new president, you can't have old currency in a new government. You can't have new government in an old currency. You know what I mean? You can't have an old president to a new currency and a new government. You've got to have new, and new. So we're going to leave the old fiat dollar. We're going to leave the old cabal structure of the government. We're going to leave Obama and Biden, that administration. And we're going to have to move to new U.S. cents, which were loaded into banks today from the Federal Reserve, okay, which, by the way, the Federal Reserve's been getting quintillions of dollars into all 12 different Federal Reserves scattered throughout the country for the last week. So they've been getting an enormous amount of liquidity pumped into their system to handle us and handle the banks and all the needs moving forward, which is another sign that we're going, quickly here. So they inaugurated Paul Ryan on Tuesday. They did the World Global announcement for the funds release on Wednesday, and we were thinking we were going to get the announcement of the government transition on Thursday. Now, it is our understanding from China that we have until Friday in order to execute this transition. And now the rulings come down from the World Court, it would only make sense that this is a real thing. And we have to go. There's no more delays or waiting. I mean, they threw out the Wells Fargo CEO, for God's sakes, for causing a few delays that didn't need to be there. They just threw him away. He's lucky he's not in jail. Actually, he gave up 109 other bankers and diplomats and politicians that were part of the cabal and holding things up in order to get his amnesty. So Mr. Stump sang for his supper. Okay? That's how he stayed out of jail. Now, he might be a dead man once he starts roaming around, but he chose to go that route instead of keeping quiet and siding with the cabal and taking on jail or worse. So torture, actually. He probably would have got torture. Who's to say he didn't? Remember his hand? Okay. So we have this transition of government. We have history in the making. We have new currency in banks. We have new values for those currencies. All currencies of the world that were once devalued or thrown away or declared defaulted, like Zimbabwe, will be reinstated with new values on the new system. In fact, it could come at any second. We have no idea when they're going to actually start trading with it and working with it. It's the end of the business week today at end of our market close, and the international business week, which ends on Thursday, not Friday, because the banks in the Middle East are not open on Friday. Their weekend is Friday, Saturday, and they start their banking and markets on Sunday. And then China and Australia start on Sunday evening. So the actual international banking week stops on the end of business on Thursday, which is another reason why, sister, we wanted to do this call, because we are of the opinion this is the last night. Another reason we think this is the last worthless evening that you'll have to spend without an RV is because you have a ceasefire in Aleppo through the Russian military. They did a 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. ceasefire and gave the Russian, or not the Russian, the people of Aleppo that were in the eastern side of the city, which is controlled by the rebellion or the adversaries of the Syrian government, the ISIS or ISIL or Daesh or whatever you want to call them. They were holed up on the east side of the city, so Russia cleared out 6 different channels or avenues for them to escape to freedom, and food, water, clothing, all of that stuff, because it's all been turned off in the east. It's really hell on the eastern side of Aleppo, which is the largest city in Syria, I think, just around 2 million people, with like 250,000 to 350,000 basically under complete hostage from these terrorists. So they had 6 avenues to get out for civilians and 2 avenues for militants to put down their guns and surrender. And I guess the militants were shooting at people in and out of those corridors a lot today and picking them off as they went by, as many as they could, which is kind of sick, but it is what it is. So that was supposed to end at 7 p.m. in Syria tonight, which is the same as basically Baghdad time. So Baghdad, I think, is 7 hours ahead of us here on the East Coast, which would make it midnight. It was supposed to end tonight. Russia, however, gave them it was midnight last night. No, it was midday today. I'm sorry, it was midday. It was noon today. It was the first It was an 8-hour. Russia initially gave an 8-hour ceasefire to get everybody out. They extended it by 3 hours. So it went from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. 7 p.m. in Syria is 12 noon on the East Coast. They then gave another 24 hours in which to flee, both the civilians and the militants that wanted to surrender. That would take us to 7 p.m. on Friday in Syria, which is 12 noon East Coast time tomorrow. Okay, Friday. So it is our belief that 12 noon is the cutoff time for hell and high water all over the world. And we have no idea what Russia's going to do after that ceasefire ends. It's like they gave them a chance, they gave everybody a chance to get out, and now they're going to go finish the job. Mosul in Iraq has already been taken. It had been taken weeks ago. That whole thing was just a complete camouflage smoke screen for the RV, for the people of Iraq, for Abadi. It was also to stage a massive troops that's going to come from the rear flank in Aleppo, and they're going to get them from all sides in the air, and there'll be nowhere for these guys to run. I mean nowhere for these guys to run, because they got troops coming up their butt from Mosul, which is about 10 hours behind them, or 10 hours east of Aleppo, heading due north. So, I'm sorry, heading due west. So, anyway, that's that. It's a lot of information. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you probably are not following this. So, Tank, let's get back on to point so we can stay with it.
Okay.
Higher security levels. Read that one.
1 second. Let's see. We are higher security levels and extended perimeters. No. Yeah. So high security levels and extended perimeters were also put into place today around all financial institutions as of 4 p.m. Or around 4 p.m. And my understanding is that high alert level of security extended to not just the military, but to all security available, to police and everyone who could be involved. So that was a really a different move to shake things up. And that's where we're at right now to this point.
Okay, so 4 p.m. is an interesting time because that's the end of the International Business Week on Thursday here in America. So that was probably ordered by the World Court. Okay? And here we are almost 8 hours later, right? And I'm sure all those military people are in place, and I'm sure the shift change at midnight in the redemption centers must be hopping like they've never hopped before, because there must be great expectation of what's going on. There are 22,000 ZIM holders that have purchased currency in the United States. This we got from, call it a banking website. Let's just call it that. Which means that if you extend that ring out another 20-30%, you're probably looking at just under 30,000 ZIM holders in North America. Now that's just the United States. I don't know about Canada and Mexico. It's illegal to hold foreign currency in Mexico, so I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. But and I'm sure Canada, from these types of calls, has their own share of ZIM holders. But if you're talking about 30,000 net within the first, 72 to 96 hours, I think it's a pretty safe bet they'll be able to get most people processed in a very short period of time, given that there's a lot of ZIM exchanges that are just exclusively made for people that hold ZIM because of its value. Also, Tank, I think there's going to be a different security level around that as well. It's my understanding that once you call into the currency exchanges... Hello, can we turn that sound down? Hello, thank you. It's my understanding that once you call and you set your appointments after you get the toll-free number, they will actually track your phone. So if there's any nonsense that goes on between you and the redemption center, they'll be able to follow you. So it's a good idea to have your phone on you at all times and use the same phone that you made the call with, because it's actually in your benefit to be tracked at that point. They also will be, they've extended the perimeter out. They have drones up in the air that will be kind of governing the main thoroughfares, if you will, into these redemption centers, which will all be very easy on, easy off exits, and very well lit and that type of thing. They've taken all of that into consideration. They also have plainclothes, I don't call them police, but we'll call them special forces that are lining the highways, that are monitoring things and basically standing guard without you even know they exist. They might be sitting at a Starbucks, watching people come in and out of the exchange centers or off the freeways, or they might look like they're changing a tire on the road. It'll actually be special forces, making sure that everything's going according to oil. And then once you get on the exchange site, they actually will videotape your license plate and take a digital check of that, and then run your plates just in case there's an issue with your priors. And they will make sure that you are who you say you are and that you do have an appointment at that time. They probably wouldn't even let you in the door if there was a problem. So that's how up-to-date on it they are. It's kind of like when you go across the border and they scan your license plate while you're sitting there talking to the guard. And then the guard says, it's okay, that license plate cleared, you can release them. Same kind of technology. So this is really thorough stuff, guys, and they will track you. My understanding is they're going to put a little GPS sticker or magnet in under your wheel well too, and they will track you home just as they track you here with your phone. So they've got eyes on you from the time that you call in to the time that you get home, and they want to make sure that you have a full round trip completion. Okay. I know, probably way too much information. Security guys hate me, but you know what? You didn't tell us anything, and you basically kept everything from us, and I don't know that that's moral either. So I'm just balancing out the great equation of life. Tank, you want to go over the rates and give them the new Zim rate?
Yes, I do, actually. Hang on one second. So right now we have the Zim at 7,800, the IQD.
No.
Oh, the new one's from. Sorry.
You're on the wrong. All right, I'm going to read them, Tank. I've got the Zim at 8125. I've got the IQD at 221. The IRR, which is the Real, at 221. The IQD and the Iranian Real have come into the same parity, which is interesting because it tells you that Iran is basically running things now, not Iraq. They share the same oil supplies, so because Iran has the larger military, larger land base, they have a lot more minerals in their mountains. I know Iraq is a very wealthy area because of the water and all of the different minerals that come off of the silt of the water over time. But I think just from a partnership perspective, Iran was a lot more attractive to China and Russia moving forward because of their strength in the region, their education, and they had a very moral core, even though they are very tough on people that commit crimes. They have a very well-established and controllable society where Iraq is basically, shoot them up at the wild, wild west because they've had 10 years post-Saddam of insanity. And, whoever was paying the most money, got people's allegiance and created a lot of bad situations. So Zim 8125, IQD, which is the dinar, is 221. IRR, which is the Iranian Real, 221. The VND, which is the Vietnamese Dong, is 128. The IDR, which is the Indonesia Rupiah, is 102. And the Afghani, I think we've had it 1050. It hasn't moved much either way. So if you bought the Afghani, enjoy yourself. It's pretty down there on the totem pole. These are all first basket currencies. They will all be redeemed at their printed face values, which is why the Zim is so spectacular and is the rock star of the RV because obviously it has the highest rates by a whole extra digit, but it also has clearly the highest face values. I think the highest face value on the Afghani is 100,000. highest face value on the Indonesian rupee is 100,000. The VND, the highest face value is 500,000. The Iranian Real highest face value, I think, is 100,000. IQD is 25,000. And the ZIM highest face value is 100 trillion. With the highest, redemption rate by far. So that's why the ZIM is unusual, to say the least. Redemption rates will vary with individual humanitarian and job creation aspirations. So depending on the depth and scope and preparation of your materials, it will sway those Abbott Downing and Wells Fargo teams that are governing your redemption appointment to determine really what you can handle and assign a rate to it. In terms of liquidity and NDAs and what has to be put for job creation and humanitarian programs versus your own private wealth, that's all negotiable. So I would feel free to bring up anything. Yes, Tank.
Hey, Yosef, you want to talk about that a little bit, man? I think that's really important for people, going into this to kind of understand, how not necessarily that anyone's going to be suddenly coached into a perfect presenter right now, but maybe you want to talk about that a little bit. I think even you might want to talk about what you're doing.
Well, what I'm doing, Tank, is 10 years of experience and having gone through international compliance and paid my own money to do that. It's not the same. So
no.
That's
not what I mean. I just mean the simplicity of how you simplified your presentation is what I meant.
Well, I didn't actually. I actually ratcheted it up, but I understand what you're saying. So what they're talking about is bring a 1 to 2 page, tops 5-page synopsis of what you want to do. Have it printed out, have it bounded in some way, shape, or form that looks halfway professional. Maybe bring a bio of yourself. And present yourself like you would, not a job interview, but just, they need to know who you are in a very short period of time, and getting your materials together in a very concise, easy to read, understandable, thumb note, summary kind of way is helpful to the people you're on the other side of the table with. That starts the interaction off right, because it shows that you're ready and you're prepared. And if you know the rates, like the rates, everybody in this call, you not only know the rates, but you also know your client information, which they're going to make Xerox copies of and put on file, right? So that they have to justify who they gave what in terms of the numbers, and then be responsible for their decisions, just like you'll have to be responsible for your decisions. So it's just common courtesy to be prepared when you go into a business meeting. And, people have made a lot of drama over all of this. Listen, everybody's been in an interview. Everybody's been to some sort of formal meeting. Unless you're 18 years old and you got gifted currency or you bought it on your lunch break, at McDonald's. So if you've never done it before, do the best you can, be yourself, tell them what you want to do, throw it out there. They may not give you $8,000 on the Zim, but I'm sure you'll get something fantastic. And then the flip of it is, if you have these aspirations and one Zim note basically pays for the entire world's, gross national product for 50 years. So if you're obsessing over money or the presentation, Tank, I'm going a completely different way than this. I don't think people should go in there thinking this is a transactional experience. Yeah, be professional. Have some materials for them so they're looking at the materials instead of staring at you. Have a little bio so they know who they're dealing with, right? They might meet sure. 500 people in the next week. Give them the opportunity to understand you quickly in a quick glance of a page. Who you are, how many kids you are, what your job experience has been, how old you are, where you live, what your skill set is, what your desires is, charities that you've helped, participated in, things you want to do for the community, ideas that you have, presentations that you've put together for other things that you're kind of sliding into this. However you want to do it, be neat, be concise, no more than 5 pages, and have a little blurb or a little summary of who you are as a human being, as a person, so that they can gauge, what's called Know Your Client, KYC, every banker has to go through a series of steps, questions, in order to gauge who's on the other side of the table, because they have to put their reputation on the line for giving you whatever rate they give you, whatever trust they give you, whatever liquidity they give you. It's an awesome responsibility because you're just meeting people cold. This is why they've gone through years and years and years of practice, is because they can get a feel for people. This is why they did sample redemptions with people for lower amounts, so they can get a feel for the process and be able to discern who's who in the zoo quickly by how they present themselves, how they come in, are they on time, or what are they wearing, how do they speak, are their materials, grade A, grade B, are their ideas, highfalutin, are they out there, are they tangible, are they measurable? These are the types of things they're going to look for without you even knowing what they're looking for, right? They've got a checklist, maybe 20 things that they've got to hit in order to give you the highest rate. So if you're not prepared for that already, Tank, there's no preparation for that. You're best off just to bring in whatever you got and as clean and presentable as you got. Be honest, speak from the heart, but also don't get too focused in the zeros. Don't get too focused on maximizing the event financially, because if you have one Zim note, you've maximized the event. Congratulations, right? And
right.
if you have 10 million to 100 million dong or dinar, you've maximized the event. Congratulations, you've taken generations of your family out of poverty. But more so, look to accomplish something going in. When you started this, what were you looking to accomplish? What was it? Was it a community center? Was it to fix your city? Was it to fix your country? Was it to solve homelessness? Was it hunger? Was it housing for the poor? Was it food supply? Was it reformation of the school systems? Like, why did you go in? Why did you start this process? Why did you listen to these freaking calls and look at all these emails and lose your eyesight? Why? And be honest with that, so that when you come forward and you talk to somebody, you're speaking from the depth of your wind, right? You're speaking from your lungs. You're speaking from your heart instead of the top air of your mouth, right? They'll look to see if you're really engaged in what you're saying versus you're just throwing out a spiel. And if you're really engaged and you're really passionate about it, they'll get that, and they'll want to help you. And you'll tell them, look, I need help here. I need you to help me get to this spot, because when I leave here after this 2 hours of heaven on earth and heaven down from manna and God's prophecy fulfilled, when I leave here, I need to accomplish that for them. And so I need a partner that's going to help me help the homeless. I need a partner that's going to help me help Cleveland. I need a partner that's going to help me fix Haiti. I need a partner that's going to help me fix Nova Scotia, Vancouver, Calgary, Native American Indian. I need a partner that's going to help the indigenous peoples in Australia, New Zealand. That's who I need. Can you be that for me? And put it on them versus them looking at you saying, what rate should I give you? Say, I need a partner to do this. And if you come from an honest, sincere place, Tank, they'll go over backwards and they'll stretch on their rates regardless of what your presentation says. You know what I mean?
I think that's great advice, actually. Yeah, I think this whole thing, one, that's kind of what I wanted you to talk to, is I don't think anyone needs to be stressed out to try to do something they're not. I know people have been telling me, like, I'm going in with, 100 different charities I'm going to donate to. Well, I don't know if that's going to get you exactly what you're looking for, because that's maybe not where they want to put their money. But I think there's a difference between speaking the truth and being the truth speaking. And what Yosef is talking about, in my opinion, Yosef, you tell me if I get this right.
No, go.
Is he's talking about speaking about who you are and what you want to do, genuinely and passionately, and speaking with that kind of authority. And I think that is so much more impactful. I am very comfortable telling someone straight, I'm going to change the world. And when I say it, I'm not putting on a show. That's how I feel. So it's much more impactful than if I was just to, list off a whole bunch of things. to change the world, there's so many different things that I'm going to pursue, and I don't want to be limited by anything financial. I want to have the authority to be creative, and a creative mind is constantly expanding and constantly changing. So I just feel that there's something to be said about being able to speak with that kind of authority, because if you're someone, you just wanted to buy a house on the lake, and take care of your kids, and that's okay too. So I just want to kind of let people off the hook. But on the other hand, I'll also say if you feel charged, if you feel that charge to do something, if you feel that you're going to have that charge, if you feel that you don't even know how you're going to change the world, make sure that you want to. You want things to be better. You want to have an impact. You want that. Make sure you go with that too. And I really, really, truly believe that's enough. And then what Yosef was talking about, I think that's a great point, is talking to them and saying, you know what, I need a partner. See, these people are going to be working with you long term. And it's okay that you don't know how to do everything. They'll respect that. No one does.
Right.
Say, I want to be able to do this. Right. Don't fake it. Just say, I don't know exactly how to do it, but I'll tell you what, I want to. And I'm going to pursue it until I figure out how. And I think that will go a lot longer than going in and pretending to be something you're not just to get the highest rate. Get the highest rate that's right for you. And that's okay.
And leave, just focus on, think of the, begin with the end in mind, the old Stephen Covey line. But it's good to visualize yourself when you walk out of the redemption and you walk back into your house. Do you feel good about how you handled yourself, how you presented yourself, what you asked for? Because if you try and bring home the entire buffet in a doggy bag, you're going to be miserable. You won't have the emotional space to house it all, right? So take what you need, think long term in your asking, and look for a partnership between yourself and the bank in order to accomplish something for others. If you're just looking at it for what you're going to need in your family, in your household, that's easy. That's already done. The elders have already given you rates so high. That's already taken care of. This is really the sovereign rate and the ZIM specifically in the first few days. This is about who is going to stand up, raise their hand and say, I am going to help heal the soul of the world, and here's what I'm doing to accomplish that. We don't need you with 10 things. Don't give me 10 programs. Don't give me 10 presentations. Tell me why God created you to help heal the soul of the world. Tell me that. And let's expand from that and work out versus I got 50 projects and them trying to figure out what it is that you really want to accomplish while you're sitting here in their hour while you're with them. Okay? I always say this to young men when they think about dating and they see all the beautiful ladies, right? And they can date them all. I said, but men, I said, love is like a football, and you can only throw one football at a time. And you can throw that football for every route, the long pass, the short pass, the screen pass, the out pass, the one over the middle, the flea flicker. You can throw it for every route. And that's how you develop a love for something, is doing it with one football in every different way. And that somehow resonates with teenage kids because all they think about is, oh, my God, we have all these footballs to choose from. But yet it's exhausting and it's not very fun because it really upsets people. Same thing with the RV. You have all these numbers to choose from. You do. But there's one number that's going to give you the greatest joy. There's one number that's going to help you fulfill your covenant. There's one truth that's going to come from within you out that the person on the other side of that the desk, that team is going to hear, and they're going to go, that's it. That's their truth. Let's help them with that. And if you know to lead with that before you get there versus fumbling around for 30 minutes trying to find it, you're in a lot better shape. And I don't think, Tank, that has anything to do with presentation or what you're wearing or anything.
They're investing
it just
in
has
you.
To do. Yeah, they're investing in you, but you got to know who the heck you are.
That's right.
So don't lie. Don't lie. In fact, whatever's true about you, shout it from the rooftops. All right? Let's move on. we're anticipating that they're going to get through 95% of the ZIM holders in the first 4 days. I'm sorry, I take that back.
48 hours.
3.5, yeah, 2 days. The first 2 days they're going to get through 95% of the ZIM holders. That's people paying attention. There's going to be 5 to 10% that are just in the sock drawer, and they'll get to it when they'll get to it. They'll keep some exchange locations open specifically for ZIM, but you better call and make that appointment, right off the bat, so you get in one of those first 48 hours, because I think that's where the sovereign rates are going to be, even though you'll be able to exchange the ZIM after that. In terms of Wells Fargo and Abbott Downing, they're kind of teaming up to handle the ZIM. Specifically, Wells Fargo's overseeing all the redemption centers in North America. HSBC is also participating overseas. So a lot of people in foreign lands ask, where should we go for our redemption? Who should we call? Well, just call the 800 number, and whatever you get, even if it's in the United States, you're calling from New Zealand, you can say, listen, I'm in New Zealand. Do you have a number for New Zealand banks that I can call? And I'm sure they'll have it for you internationally as well. So feel free to ask that even with North American numbers. But in terms of the bank that's actually overseeing everything overseas and really overseeing even Wells Fargo here in the United States and North America is HSBC. So your best bet wherever you are in the world is to contact an HSBC bank to figure out where to go to redeem your currency. Abbott Downing is the private wealth management bank, ultra high net worth private management bank for what is the Wells Fargo family. They are a separate bank from Wells Fargo. They are a separate bank and entity from Wells Fargo Advisors. They are a separate bank and entity from Wells Fargo Private Bank. They are their own little bank, their own little universe, their own little money management group. And they only deal with people that have $50 million in cash that's liquid to invest. Not that they have a total of $50 million cash, but that they have $50 million liquid to invest. And that's a really small number that everybody that has ZIM qualifies for. Hence the presence of Abbott Downing in the exchange process. Capiche? ZIM holders will receive the first toll-free appointments at the call centers. That's true because of the volume. We talked about how big the redemption size will be because of the face value of the ZIM, and also the redemption number is so much higher. The redemption rate is so much higher than the other first basket currencies. That's why you're getting the first appointments. There will be teams of Abbott Downing there to assist you. We hear anywhere from 5 to 10, depending on how big you are. So enjoy that. If you don't like crowds, get used to them because they're going to be a lot of eyeballs looking at you and kind of making judgments. So it's real important to show up and be wholesome and honest and true versus trying to sell somebody on something that you're not prepared for. Sudden wealth redemption is considered generationally transferable because all redemption deposits are now continuously held within a new global trust system. So just as they've changed over the technology and the satellites and the codes and the computer mainframes and the software for the new financial system, they've also changed over the rules, regulations governing trusts. The trust system was created by the very wealthy here in this country in order to hide their assets from the world and not have to pay any taxes. In 1969, that changed, and they were basically forced to pay tax, not as much as you would if you had it in normal straight checking, savings, or investment accounts, but nonetheless, you had to pay a trust tax, and when you died, the kicker was 50% of that went back to the government. So if you didn't have proper management, you got kind of screwed, or if you died alone, or if you didn't have a trustee or somebody to will it to, in essence, it goes back to the house. That's how they set it up for their own benefit. Thus, that trust system, I think, has been changed, and we're going to find out just how much it's been changed when all the new U.S. Treasury, IRS, Federal Reserve, and all that mess kind of plays itself out here in the first and second quarter of 2017. when we get the new government and the new Nasara and Jasara taxation, global taxation, and also the new taxation here domestically with, I don't know if they're going to keep using the IRS or use it for a period of time and then disband it. But it's already been reformed, just like the Federal Reserve, just like FEMA, just like Homeland Security, just like the CIA, just like the NSA, just like the Pentagon. They've all been reformed. Okay? But in terms of the sudden wealth redemption being considered generationally transferable, when you have a trust, you list a trustee in case something happens to you, that they would be in charge of your trust and it would pass without taxation to the next one in line. Okay? You're in the on-deck circle for the trust, and some of you might be in the on-deck circle for your trust now with your parents or your institutional wealth or friends or family. It's kind of like being a godfather, if you will, of the money. And some people are not only on deck, but they're in double deck, triple deck, quadruple deck. There's a line of succession with a trust in case there's accidents or a group accident. You know, a lot of people go down in the same plane, that type of thing, the same bus, or there's a flood in an area and everybody's listed in that particular, you know, city that's a trustee, and that city gets hit by a hurricane or tornado or whatever. What's called force majeure, which is basically the will of God, you know, eliminating plans and people. So trustees go pretty deep, and a lot of you may not have 2, 3, 4, 5 trustees to consider for this kind of money, for any money, but you're going to have to find them over time. Law firms typically do this, and trust firms that basically specialize in the management of trusts, whether they're a lawyer or they're actually a trust firm that actually financially manages the affairs of the trust as well, including family office. Abbott Downing does all of this, by the way. They will actually become the trustee of your trust should anything happen to you and you don't have somebody behind you, and they'll inform you of that when you're there. But that's not just Abbott Downing. That's any private bank. That's any trust company. Any law firm can do that for you as well. Any accounting firm can do it for you. So don't feel you're alone if you really don't have a next of kin or a sibling or a spouse that you can trust, or that even believes in you. You know, half of our spouses don't believe in us, and they really wouldn't be good representatives of this wealth should something happen to any of us, because they're just not in the vibration of what's going on. So you have to think about succession, just like, you know, Obama goes down, Biden goes down, Ryan steps up, he's third in command as Speaker of the House. Same thing with the trust. If you go down, if your second in line goes down, you got to think about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think the presidency goes about 12 names out, goes all the way down through the cabinet for the United States. So you'll have to think about trust. But the good thing is it will be transferable, which means whatever you sign up for at your redemption appointment, your trustee will get. It will pass tax-free, and they will be able to manage it just as you managed it should anything happen to you. So that's good. A lot of people were worried that it's only good for while we're alive, and that's not the case. The other thing, too, was that the entire trust system, which holds a vast, vast majority of the world's wealth now, I would say 90% or more, is also going to hold the same amount of wealth in the future because of the new system. However, because it's a new trust system, all of the accounts in the trust system will be backed by the full weight and collateral of the global debt facility or the global collateral accounts that we talked about at the top of the show, and thus you'll have 100% insurance. Now, if you want to buy reinsurance, you can. I don't know that it's necessary, but a lot of people will want to buy reinsurance just because they're trained to. And I think you can get that through Lloyd's of London, Lancet, trying to think what some of the others are. But those are the two biggies for reinsurance. Aon is one. I don't know what they go up to, their limits. But anyway, there's a wide variety of insurance projects if you want, because the global collateral accounts will be basically guaranteeing 100% of your deposit, which is super duper cool. So Tank, our money's safe, short, and long. So what should we be focused on when we're in the redemption? Hello? Anybody? Did I lose everybody? Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. We're just muted.
Okay. Tank's muted too?
Okay. Let's see. Tank is here.
Okay. He's asleep probably, or went to the bathroom. One of the two. Okay. Sorry about that.
He's unmuted.
Okay. So your money is safe short and long, which is great. They thought that through. Obviously, there's going to be a question by a lot of people when they went in for the redemption. So as part of this negotiated amnesty packet on behalf of the U.S., Inc., President and Vice President and Speaker of the House, they all had to resign, just like Boehner did in September when the Pope was in town. And Ryan was installed as the third in line of succession to the presidency as the new Speaker of the House. Obama and Biden, we understand, have not only signed their resignations, it's been taped, and they've already done their taped recording announcement. So I don't even know that they need to be present when this runs. Once that runs, it's over for them. So up until now, they've been allowed to keep the facade up, but they've been kind of out of running the country for quite some time. Now, I'm not saying I'm a Democrat or Republican. You may not like Paul Ryan. You may want a Democrat in there. You may want a shot at an election. I still think they're going to give an election opportunity to the people. I just think that the way that they've set it up is they wanted somebody that they could trust, that they felt comfortable with, that was competent in terms of the policies of the country that needed to be healed, fixed, restored, certainly rewritten from the old shadow government lobbyists that basically worked it to the advantage of a very small group of people, and open it back up again. Now, Paul Ryan's tried to do this with what's called a better way. You can check it out on his website, speakerofthehouse.gov, and it'll say a better way, and it's got all these different things that he's going to do for poverty and the economy and taxes and the reformation of government and Obamacare and all this stuff. So that's his plan and policy that he wants to institute should he be elected president. I do think there's going to be election. I do think it's going to be suspended. I do think that they're going to limit campaign contributions so that this RV money doesn't affect the new election. I do think the Clintons did not take the amnesty, and they are going to be tried. I'm not sure about the Bushes. I do think that a lot of the politicians that were in office and completely corrupted will resign, and new ones will be immediately put into place, so there'll be snap elections in those districts as well. And the John McCains of the world, the Lindsey Grahams, those types of the Harry Rockefellers. I'm sorry, did I say Harry Rockefeller? I meant Harry Reid. He's actually a Rockefeller. Do you know Chevy Chase is a Rockefeller? Do you know Paul Simon's a Rockefeller? Did you know Edward Norton's a Rockefeller?
No, that one
Obviously,
I didn't know.
Bill Clinton's a Rockefeller, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Edward Norton is the grandchild of Warren Buffett.
Talking about the actor.
Oh, yeah? Academy Award.
No, I didn't know that. I like him. I like he's a little loose when he acts, but I did not know that he was a Rockefeller.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we have obviously massive transition in the democracy, and they're going to rip the Band-Aid off without really ripping it off. They're going to go back to the Constitution. They're going to say, hey, we're going back to the Constitution. We're getting rid of all these lobbyists. But because of that, we got to throw out our president and vice president and the current administration, and we're going to put Paul Ryan in temporarily until we can have an election. Well, the way the Chinese and the Russians have set it up as the major creditors, they've said, listen, Paul, we're going to put you on a pedestal here. We're going to let you have an interim run at the presidency working up to the election, which your Republican base is then going to get behind because you're a sitting incumbent Republican president after 8 years of a Democratic rule that basically collapsed the country financially. So he's got a really good chance of winning, whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent or Libertarian, whatever way you lean. they put him in the best possible position to win because that's their guy. Like him, don't like him. I'm just telling you that's the way it is. And he's a young, charismatic, he's a policy wonk. He's very conservative. Those are things they all like about him. And if he were to be president for the next 8 years, that would be a good legacy to get the country moving in the right direction. They did the same thing in Canada with Justin Trudeau. Like him, don't like him. Young, policy, knew his policy from his family. I don't know how people feel about the Trudeau family, but ultimately, Paul Ryan and Justin Trudeau are cut from the same cloth, right? To give kind of a fresh new face, a fresh new coat of paint on a really bad political scene, both in Canada and the United States. So that's the way they were thinking in terms of who they picked in terms of leadership to move forward. And whoever the Democratic nominee will be, it won't be Hillary Clinton. Chances are we believe it'll be Elizabeth Warren to try and take advantage of all the female vote. Maybe we're not exactly sure who would be her running mate, but maybe Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. I don't know. That doesn't seem like a winning ticket, though, does it? There was talk of Al Gore coming back and running, but I don't think that's going to happen because Al Gore was built into the family. He's in the cabal family from birth, so I don't see that happening. Let's see. Trump was basically installed in 2015 to serve as a mouthpiece for Republic, the new Republic kind of platform, to get some of these issues out about the old cabal mechanisms of power that included Hillary Clinton, but all government, really, all the elites, all the people that basically kept enslaving us here in this country. And he brought up a lot of issues. Now, Trump's obviously a bit of a pig, but what he did was honorable, and he certainly sang for his supper for a good hard year in order to get some real estate deals and cash in his currency, I might add, too. Also positioned his family in the public spotlight and gave them a global brand name that he didn't have to pay a nickel's worth of advertising for. So Mr. Trump did just fine and ultimately paved the way so that Ryan can come in, and he will acquiesce to the Republican base that will want Ryan instead of Trump on the ticket. I think Mike Pence will shift over and become Paul Ryan's running mate to try and carry all the Trump voting over to his side when he does have to go to the polls. And that will be a nice transference, and Trump will support him, and Trump will actually stump on the campaign trail with him. And that'll keep his face in front of the cameras a little bit more, and he'll come off like a hero, that he stepped down, and the people will be so happy that he stepped down. They'll like him just because he's not going to be president, which is kind of funny. So I think that's all finally coming to fruition. It's surprising it came so late in the year or in the election cycle, but I think those two things were connected in that the weather in Europe and the late date of the November elections here in the United States corresponded because Russia and China were putting the squeeze on all the cabal in different parts of the world. And one of the squeezes, obviously, was the squeeze on the political machine and dynasties here in the U.S., but it was also on the EU and NATO through the Ukraine and the gas supplies into Eastern Europe before the winter hit. And so that's why Ukraine is a big deal. They get, I think through the Ukraine pipelines, they pump in about 66% of all the oil into Eastern Europe, all the natural gas heating oil that keeps the homes warm in Eastern Europe, including Italy, France, Germany, Poland, Romania. It just goes on and on and on. So, including the Ukraine, which gets a vast majority of its gas from Russia as well. So, basically, Russia played it to the very, very end. And threatened to turn off all the gas in Europe. How's that for hardball? at the same time, they waited till the clock ran out on the political elections to where nobody could really reverse what the Chinese and Russians wanted to do in our election. So, that's just kind of what happens when you go bankrupt, and your leading creditors get to choose how you come out of bankruptcy.